Hey guys, I wrestled with doing this because I always want to make sure that everybody feels as if their opinions are not being cut off. But in this episode that you're about to watch, I did have to take some time and cut out some on screen production. I had a problem with my webcam, and then I had to go back and reset up all my OBS scenes to use my backup webcam. None of my scenes were set up. My main scene was actually set up already to do so, but none of the scenes that I had with visual aids had been set up. I will give you my word that I did not cut anything that John said out, just took some of the production out. You'll see a cut in the video, which you're not used to seeing on Ed's World, and you'll hear some of the conversation leading up to it in the audio. Thanks for listening. I'm sorry about the poor production quality of this show, and enjoy my talk with John. He's a great guy. Take care, everyone. Good morning and welcome to Ed's World, where it's always morning, even in the afternoon. I am Jay Edgar, and I am joined once again by the original Ed's World guest, John. Welcome back
That's
to
right.
Ed's World.
Hey, how's it going, Ed?
It's
Good to be
good.
back.
It is good to have you back as well. I'm hoping this will be a little bit more polished of a production than it was the first time because I was still trying to figure things out the first time, and you were very patient with me. Very
Oh, yeah,
generous to
yeah.
the fact that you would come on while I'm still trying to figure things out. So
Yeah, we all got to start somewhere.
that's right. I do want to look back through the audio archive sometimes and see if I can find some of those first episodes of Generational Gap.
Oh, God, no. Don't do that. I do not recommend that, no.
Make it
Yeah, they're
dangerous,
pretty
just going to make me
terrible.
want it more.
You won't enjoy it, you'll just torture yourself. So, you've been warned.
But before we get started here, I do want to make just a couple of announcements. First off, yes, as you've noticed at this point, we don't have the music yet. I'm still working on getting that set up. And it may be premature at this point, but I will be setting up a PayPal tip jar for this channel. I'm actually setting it up for something else entirely, but the fact that it's going to be there means I'm going to put it there. If you want to throw something in there, it'll be much appreciated. If you don't, I'm going to try and improve the show a little bit more so you do want to put something in there. So you'll see that functionality showing up on my YouTube front page, and I'll be looking for other ways that I can integrate it into the videos. Before we get started, I wanted to take some time and talk about just something that's been on my mind. It was something that I kind of predicted was going to happen because it's something that we all have to think about now every time we have a public gathering. There was a shooting in Madison last night towards the end of their Shake the Lake festival, and when the Shake the Lake festival was starting, I kind of thought that it was going to start happening. We are starting to see a lot more of these, and a lot of people are starting to think about how do we stop them. I am staunchly in favor still of the ability to shoot back, but it just kind of, I don't want to put the tinfoil on when I talk about this, but it still concerns me the fact that all of these things are happening when we're trying to push a narrative of gun control in highly liberal, left leaning areas like Madison, Wisconsin. So I want to pray for the victims of everybody that was affected by that. I will have some details in the show notes as this goes out so people can know what was going on all around the country. People can maybe see if there are any donations or charities that they can look to. I think Madison's news website has that in there, but that'll all be linked in the show notes. We have a packed show today outside of just this little anecdote. This is probably going to be one of the bigger shows that we've ever done here, so we're going to get right to this as soon as we can. 2020 is going to be on the top of things because the debates happened. Before we get into our debate talk, though, we do have to talk about Elizabeth Warren and her gay reparations. But I predict that the majority of this show is going to be debate talk. If I remember correctly, your show on Friday was supposed to be debate talk, too, and I wound up in a discussion about public education, did I not?
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Our show is entirely about tangents. That's pretty much what we do. We start with a topic and then it just goes wherever it goes. It is what it is.
Robert Mueller is back in the news briefly because he is going to be called and subpoenaed to testify in front of Congress. We all knew this was coming. He claims that there's not going to be anything he can say that wasn't in the report, but we'll talk about some speculation as to what's going to happen there 16 days before it happens. A Chicago bartender, a news story from my neck of the woods, spit in Eric Trump's face. This bartender is going to be going down for assault over this because of Illinois law, but we'll look at what this means and we'll look at some of the comparisons with the redhead incident from last year. There were two major Supreme Court decisions handed down on gerrymandering and the census question. We'll talk a little bit about that. I think I've done a solo video on the census question, and I think you guys have talked about gerrymandering on your show, so we'll compare some notes there. Something I do want to get into a little bit more depth about. There was an anti-gun tweet storm on Twitter by a failed New York representative candidate that got everybody on Twitter saying, "Who the hell is this guy?" So we'll take some time and talk about that. The G20 happened this weekend. Trump met with Putin, and they got some very, very angry questions from the news media, so we'll talk about that. And Donald Trump became the first U.S. president to cross the demilitarized zone. We'll talk a bit about that. And finally today, Andy Ngo was brutally accosted during a Portland rally, and this is something that I think is going to strike near and dear to all of us. I'm sure that you're going to talk about this on your show coming up, which will actually be out before this, as we always talk about for this. But we'll talk a little bit about what that means for independent journalism as well. It is going to be all of this and more over on Ed's World. Thanks for watching this video on YouTube. If you like what you saw, make sure you go down and hit that subscribe button and the like button. And if you're watching this on BitChute, do the same over there. Ed's World is available on audio platforms, iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play if you want to take us on the go. If you are listening to this on iTunes, please make sure you leave a 5-star rating and a good review. That helps us move up the charts. And just as your show is, Ed's World is available on the Freedom Scoop Media Group. Make sure you go check us out over there. Make sure you check out John's show over there and our friend Stephen Ignoramus. And we are starting to recruit some more writers over there. If you have any interest in writing for a political outlet, please reach out to me. Email me at edsblogtwitter@gmail.com. After a lengthy introduction that we probably didn't need on such a packed show, it's time to talk about the most important part of Ed's World. So, even though you've been here before, we have some new audience members, of course. So, John, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm John from the Generational Gap, another YouTube channel. Just kind of a normal guy. Don't really, have anything special about me, I guess. Other than the fact, that I'm pretty awesome. I guess that's special. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much me in a nutshell. Don't really, yeah, I don't really have any like special hobbies or anything. Nothing really good. No.
Well,
I'm always bad at these like introduce yourself things,
Yeah. Well, we'll step away from yourself, and I hope we'll come up with an interesting hobby, because otherwise that's going to make the end segment a little bit boring. But
okay, no, I can do that.
You mentioned the generational gap, so
yes.
Tell us a little bit about that and how you and Robert, who's also been on this channel, got into that.
Well, I've been wanting to start a podcast for a few years now, even when I was considerably more left-leaning than I am now. So it's been an idea that I've been toying around with for, maybe 5 or 6 years, and never was really in a position to do it until very recently. And I wanted to have someone else on, with me on a podcast so that I'm not all on my own and just kind of talking at a camera, Plus I work best with another person. And so what happened was Robert started coming around because he's the cousin of my roommate. And so he started coming around the house, and we would, we had good chemistry, make, good jokes together. And we started getting into like political discussions, and we found that while we agree on principles for the most part, there's a lot of things that we disagree on, and so we would have quite heated debates. They would get very, very heated, but we were able to walk away as friends afterwards. And so I had the idea that we would make good podcast hosts, and so I brought it up to him one day, and he was into it. And so we had to work out some timing issues, and making sure that we each had the equipment that we needed. And then yeah, we gave it a shot. We just started recording and throw it up there to see what would happen. And now I'm on the world famous Ed's World. So clearly I did something right.
Now, I've had Robert on my show twice. I've had you
Hmm.
on once before, and this is your second time. And
Yes.
on all three of the times, none of you has ever touched on the title and where that came from. And for
Okay.
people who
Yeah.
aren't familiar with the channel, tell us why it's called the generational gap.
That's because Robert is old as dirt, and and I'm a millennial. So we figured we were going to come at the show from kind of that perspective, the difference between our two generations.
Hmm.
Um, and it kind of started out that way, and then now it's just kind of been we disagree politically. So, but no, I mean there are still a lot of generational differences in just mindset, and the way that we think things should be moving forward.
I understand that entirely because, I mean, I've had Gen Z on this show before and I've gone the other direction. I've had Generation X on the show. I'm kind
Yeah,
of on the Generation X and millennial line.
right.
So, but when you're in the generational gap, you do get different answers.
Yeah,
People look at things
absolutely.
differently. Absolutely.
Yep. It's all about the way that you're raised, and the time period that you're raised in. Absolutely. I mean everything changed with the internet. So
It sure did.
yeah.
Well, with all of that having been said and done, let's get into the topic that I think is going to take up 60% of this show.
Absolutely.
We're going to be talking, of course, about 2020. Now, before we get into the meat of this and what I've been dying to talk about and what you guys tried to talk about already once on your show, I want to talk a little bit about something that the person I believe is going to be the front runner decided to make a big deal about. This past week, some of the conspiracy websites out there started making a big deal about the fact that Elizabeth Warren was bringing up the idea of gay reparations. This
Hmm.
after the entire internet had already been outraged by the fact that we're in the mainstream talking about slavery reparations. Now, this wasn't what I thought, or I knew this wasn't going to be what the headlines were going to try and make it out to be. Let me phrase that correctly. But it does speak to whether or not this is going to be vote buying or not. And since we both kind of fall on the libertarian side, at the end of this topic, we'll talk a little bit about what this could mean and what this should mean. But what have you read
Hmm.
about this so far?
All I've read was the original tweet that she made about it.
Hmm.
Uh, and so basically, what I got from it was not. I guess I saw her talk about it too. Is that it's not about like just giving money to gay people, right? It was about tax credits.
Hmm.
That they were paid. They weren't able to file jointly through for being gay married.
Hmm.
Uh, and so that they were obviously they didn't get those tax breaks that other married couples, newlywed couples would get. And so she's talking about giving some of that money back to them for not being able to file jointly before. Um, so that's what I got from it. So it doesn't sound like just blanket giving gay people money.
Yeah, and I'm sure that that was what the headlines were intended to make that all sound like. With that,
Mm.
this is just blanket giving people money. Uh,
Yeah.
this is actually a rehash of a 2017 bill that Elizabeth Warren was on. She didn't write this bill, but she was sponsored onto it. It was called the what was it called? The Refund Equality Act. What it essentially did was, you're absolutely right. There were so many states before before Obama was around that had passed gay marriage, as law. The state
Mm,
that Warren represents from Massachusetts was the first one to do so. But you couldn't file as a married couple and get the tax benefits for filing as a married couple on a federal level. Yes, you could do so jointly on a state level, but
hmm
it wasn't on a federal level. Now, the Daily Wire cited the fact that the federal government, if this goes through, would owe married or same-sex married couples across the country 50 to 67 million dollars total,
Wow.
which is fine
Wow.
if they don't want that in the government coffers. I'll take a break too.
Right? Yeah, I could use some of that. Oh man.
When did Florida implement same-sex marriage? Did that go on the federal side, or was that
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah, it was federal side.
Well, I didn't
Yeah.
know if it was one of the ones that jumped on first. I wasn't sure because I'm not sure where Florida stands politically rather.
I mean, it's a battleground state, right? It's kind of even 50-50 on left and right. So it just really depends on what area you're in. Like obviously around the four major cities, there's, a lot more blue. There's also a lot of country in between those. So it really could go either way. But we also don't have a state income tax. So,
You lucky
filing,
prick.
yeah, yeah, it's nice. So, I mean, filing jointly, for the state wouldn't have really mattered.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, one of the questions too that I wanted to talk about this for was the fact that this seems to be vote buying, but I'm not sure if it is or not. I'm kind of on the fence as to whether or not it is because the states that this is going to benefit the most as far as vote buying are pretty solidly blue states that aren't going to go to anybody else no matter what. I mean,
Hmm.
Massachusetts was the first state to implement same-sex marriage, and that's been solidly blue since Reagan. That still hasn't gone red for anything. I mean, Wisconsin at least went red for Trump. California
Yeah.
is going to be another one. They were one of the first ones as well. They're going to get some of the most benefit because they have some of the most income in the country. They probably have the biggest populations, which statistically means there are more same-sex couples out there. But that is a solidly blue state that no matter what you do is going to go to the Democrats right now,
Hmm.
unless something major happens.
Right.
So I don't
I
know
think
where.
it.
Go ahead.
I think it's more virtue signaling than it is, vote buying. I mean, that's really what it seems like to me,
Hmm.
because I mean, it's going to affect so few people. You know what I mean? That it's really not going to do much. So that is what it seems like to me. Just virtue signal, just saying, hey, vote for me, gays. I'm gonna, I'm gonna give you your gay parations or reparations or whatever you want to call them. you know?
Reparations.
Yeah.
That's going in the Merriam-Webster book.
Yeah.
But now, as I touched on before when we were talking about this in our libertarian roots, do we support this? Because taxation is theft, and they're given a chance to give some people their money back.
Yeah, but I mean, it's one of those things to apply across the board
Yeah.
or not at all. You can't favor one group over another.
Oh, when I did my solo video, I said the same thing. I'm like, okay, this is supposed to equalize everybody, make everybody the same across the board. So either you're going to have to, make affidavits and have neighbors say, oh, these people were living together and this
Mm.
happened and whatnot to try and equalize everybody retroactively back, or, and I mean, nobody will ever abuse that system, or
No, never.
just give it across the board to everybody else. I mean, 50 to 60 million isn't going to stretch too, or yeah, 50 to 67 million isn't going to be huge to everybody across the country, but it'll throw a couple cents in everybody's pockets at least.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. But I mean, didn't was it Reagan or was it Nixon? Might have been Nixon who gave everyone, what was it, like $300 or something like that?
I
Like
think that was
everyone
a
just got.
Futurama episode.
No, no, I understand that was a Futurama episode, but I think it was also based off of like what actually happened. Could be wrong about that, but
I
I'm
would
pretty sure that actually happened.
I'll look into that off camera. 'Cause
Okay.
that would be an interesting idea to bring up. I know that when Obama was first coming in, he had something like that though too, where it was supposed to be a stimulus, and he just, hey, here's money, do something with it.
That might be what I'm thinking of then,
Yeah,
but I don't know.
that was in '08. We all got that, and I never got mine.
I never got mine either.
Huh.
I mean, I was also 18, so I don't know if I would have got that, if I would have qualified.
I think mine got lost in the mail because at the time it was all coming out, I was in the process of coming from eastern Massachusetts back into southern Wisconsin.
Oh man.
It was a
Yeah, I mean,
substantial chunk of money too.
yeah, fair enough.
Well, let's get on to what I think everybody needs to talk about in all of this. And the reason that we're talking about 2020 is all of the fun stuff that happened around the debate stage. Now, of course, everybody knows there were two major Democratic debates across two nights this past week, and there were shenanigans afoot. A lot of people are already accusing the DNC of cheating again, and without
Hmm.
super delegates, I think they're going to have to because I think that they are trying to put Warren to the top. We'll talk a little bit about that when we talk about the structure of everything. But the first story that I want to talk about is going to be the most damning, and that is the fact that it looks like, from evidence that's been put out by NBC, from evidence that's been put out by left leaning and right leaning sources, that Andrew Yang's mic was cut off during the debates
Hmm.
because he got a total of 2 minutes and 32 seconds of talk time versus Joe Biden's 12 minutes and 58 seconds. But there's also video of him trying to speak up and no sound coming out. And there are other people that say that they could hear him faintly coming across other people's microphones across the stage. So, what have you seen on
Hmm.
this so far?
Yeah, I've just seen that video that you're referring to. I didn't really hear him coming across from anyone else.
Neither
That
did
might
I.
just be me. All right. But yeah, you could see him mouthing the words like "excuse me,"
Hmm.
So obviously it could either be that the mic was cut off and there was some shenanigans there, or he was just being, too soft. Like he was just kind of mouthing it and not actually speaking up. So, I mean, it's hard to tell, but I would not put it past the DNC to do that. I wouldn't at all.
I've come up with some ideas as to what they could have to gain from this or why they would want to try and silence him. And one of the first things that I thought, of course, is the fact that he has been willing to go and talk with the other side. And I'm not talking about just Fox News, where
Mm.
the left still, for the most part, controls that. Andrew Yang has been on Ben Shapiro's Sunday show before.
That's right, he has, yeah.
So I could see them trying to discredit him over all of that because he's a fallen candidate at this point.
Yeah, he was on Joe Rogan as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that was a really good episode. He did very well there.
I haven't heard that one, and that's going on my download list.
Yeah, I recommend it. But yeah, no, I mean, I can see that. He's betrayed the DNC, betrayed his overlords, and he doesn't get to be president now.
Well, I think a lot of that does come from the idea of candidate that they can't control. I think that's a lot of the reason we
Hmm.
have so much Trump hatred, too. Candidate that they can't control, and they're willing to take the loss and get Pence in, even though he's so much further to the right of everybody else, because he is somebody from the inside that knows how everything works. Trump is not someone from the inside, and Yang is essentially not someone from the inside either.
I think Pence is also not electable. So if they get rid of, Trump and Pence becomes president, he's not gonna be reelected. Or he's not gonna be elected, I guess.
Oh, so you think we'll get the Gerald Ford effect?
Yeah, yeah, that's what it seems like. Yeah, because I mean, so has heard anything about Pence recently? I mean, has he done anything?
Well, he's done some things. There are a lot of people that say that he's one of the reasons behind the fact that we do still have Iran tensions, but I mean, yeah, for
Oh,
the
could
most
be.
part, he is fairly quiet. But Joe was fairly quiet while he was sitting in that same seat.
Well, yeah, but every time he did speak up, it was gaff after gaff. It was pretty funny. Yeah, that guy. I can't believe he's running. Really. I mean,
I can.
I don't
I
know
knew
why.
it
I don't
was
know why
coming.
he would want to. I don't know why he would want to.
It's his turn.
I mean, it was Hillary's turn, so let's see. Let's see how that works out for him. But yeah, no, I think Elizabeth Warren's going to be the candidate,
Yeah.
or Harris, Kamala Harris.
Let's jump back off who is going to be the
Yeah.
candidate, but you've answered one of my later questions already. But
Ah.
um, who do you think won out of both
um,
nights?
the first night, I think it was Tulsi Gabbard. I think she took the night for
Hmm.
sure. She was the most reasonable one there. She was, very well spoken and very firm on her points. So I did like that.
Very
And then,
isolationist too.
yeah,
That speaks to a lot of people that are in the middle right now, and a lot of people who are saying they're Trump all the way, but we're people who converted from the other side.
and anti-interventionist, which
Yeah.
is obviously part of isolationist, but I think that's the more important part of that is anti-war and anti-intervention. So definitely plus on her side.
I'm actually talking with Jake right now. He got me a Freedom Scoop email address, and I'm going to use that once he takes some time and shows me how to log in onto his server. And I'm going to reach out to Tulsi and see if I can get her on our shows.
Ooh, that would be amazing. Look at you making us popular and big.
I think that
Awesome.
would do well for us, and it would do well for her because it would show that she's willing to talk to the other side and talk to
Yeah,
the voters themselves, and not just the high paid people.
right. Yeah, that would be amazing.
What about night two?
Night two. Mm, I mean, I want to say Yang, but he only had the what did you say, 2.5 minutes? I
Yeah,
mean, he didn't really get a chance to talk that much. Um, I gotta say the winner of night two was Trump, honestly. As I mean, it was just so bad. The only one I thought was any kind of good was Hickenlooper. He had some kind of libertarianist you know uh, talking points about states' rights and doing things at the state level as opposed to federal level, which is awesome to hear. He didn't get a lot of time to speak either, though, and I think that's part of the reason why.
yeah.
It's because he's not towing the line correctly. But I definitely liked what he had to say more so than everyone else.
It's amazing the people that we say were the big winners of the nights that are going to be the people that are going to be blocked by whatever conspiracy the DNC cooks up, if they are cooking up a conspiracy. I don't have any
Yeah.
foil near me, so I can't cover my head.
And then, if we can, I want to talk about Marianne Williamson for a second.
It's
This
half your
man, she
show.
was, she was a treasure. Oh my God, I really hope she gets memed into the presidency. That would be amazing. I mean,
Or at least the debate.
who?
That is going to, I think, her being out there, because I always ask the same questions, and one of those is entertainment value. I think that's going to
Mhm.
change a lot of answers going forward for all of my guests on my show, because
Oh
nobody knew
yeah,
who she was before.
no
I
idea.
didn't know.
Yeah, we were actually streaming with Stephen Ignoramus that night on
Yep.
D Live, and yeah, as soon as I saw her, I was like, "Who? Like, who the hell is this?" And like we were trying to look her up and everything. It took me forever just to find her Twitter, let alone everything else. So, but no, I mean she was great. I loved everything she said.
Hmm.
I don't agree with it, but it was just hilarious. All her answers about oh, we're gonna win with love, and she sounds like someone's mom. Like, oh man,
I
yeah,
wonder
that
if
was
the
good.
Greens will pick her up if she doesn't make it to the end.
Yeah,
Replace hippie grandma for a while.
right. With Jill Stein, you mean?
Yeah, hippie
Right?
grandma.
Yeah, yeah, hippie grandma. Yeah, that was good stuff.
I want to take some time and talk about some of the points that were brought up and some of the other points of contention. We already talked about the Yang controversy.
Hmm.
Um, One of the big points that everybody picked up on came from the second night, and that was the fact that Kamala Harris had her pointed story to take to Joe Biden talking about a busing controversy. And as per usual, the internet has already found as many ways as they can to poke as many holes in this as they can.
Hmm.
So, do you remember the incident that brought this to the front?
Yeah. Obviously, Joe Biden was racist. Just to throw that out there first,
Hmm.
and then yeah, but it was because he was working with segregationists instead of just completely blocking them out, even though they were also legislators
And Democrats.
um, and Democrats, right? Um, and then I know there was something about like she was supposed to have been bused to another district or whatever to go to another school.
Hmm.
Um, it was just a very like virtue signally and just a. Did it turn out to not be true? I think that's where we're about to go, right? That it was
Yeah,
that she
that's
was
the internet
very
came and
privileged.
yeah, the internet came and picked that all apart because it wasn't just the fact that she was privileged, but California was desegregated in 1942.
Mm,
It was actually one of the
yeah,
first, if I remember correctly.
that makes sense. Yeah, so she just outright lied then, I guess.
Yeah, but the American people are going to gobble that up,
Yeah.
especially the people who would be voting for Harris or Warren or anybody else like that. Anybody who's trying to get rid of Trump is just going to sit down and gobble all of that up. They're not going to remember the fact that she lied on stage. They're going to remember her standing in front of Brett Kavanaugh saying, "Who'd you talk to?"
Hmm. Yeah, if they even do remember that. But no, I mean, have any of the mainstream media sites said anything about fact checking her or any of those fact checking sites?
No, just how
Said
brave
anything
she
about her
was of
since?
the fact that she was
Right.
of the second class to be desegregated,
Right. So it's never gonna matter.
even though
The
she's
actual truth.
43.
Right. Of course. The actual truth is never gonna come out. I mean, people will talk about it on Twitter and whatnot, but they'll probably start getting banned for saying that. Who knows?
One of the other points that was brought up here, and this was one of the, we'll stay with the second night, of course. The first question that was asked went to Senator Bernie Sanders. It was asked of Sanders whether or not his Medicare for All plan would raise the taxes on the middle class. And in true
Hmm.
Bernie Sanders fashion, he completely dodged and avoided the question and did not answer. And then the moderators gave him an extra 10 seconds to answer the question, in which he said yes. Finally,
Mm-hmm.
somebody has said yes, this is going to affect the middle class.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? Good on the moderators. I got to give them credit for that. That they actually demanded an answer, a direct answer to the question. They don't usually do that. I'm not gonna say they've never done that, but they don't usually do that with these debates. So that was great. And yeah, he did expertly try to avoid the question by just talking about the top 1%. You know, but but yeah, I mean, we all knew obviously that it was going to affect the middle class. It'll probably affect lower classes as well.
Hmm.
Once you suck the middle class dry, you have to move on to the lower ones.
Absolutely. And that's been one of the hardest things because yes, the Twitter left, the Facebook left, and even the mainstream left has been running this narrative that this is going to be nothing but funded by the upper 1%, which is
Hmm.
mathematically impossible
It's
at this point.
ludicrous, yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, especially with how complicated the tax codes are. You know what I mean? There's all kinds of loopholes that they use to get out of paying as much as the percentage that they're taxed.
Hmm.
It's not even just loopholes. It's tax breaks, things you can investing back into your company. You get tax breaks for that. Buying things for like I said, for the company. Um, and then yeah, once you have people start leaving or moving their headquarters out of the country,
Hmm.
then they're paying even less taxes. So they're paying taxes to other countries instead of ours.
Yeah.
So I mean, of course, it's going to go down to the lower classes, the middle and lower classes.
And that brings up an interesting point that I remember. There was during the Million Student March, Neil Cavuto had on the leader of the Million Student March, a girl named Keely. to sit
Mm.
down and talk about what it was that they were trying to accomplish. And on air, Cavuto debunked the notion that this was all going to be paid by the upper 1% because he brought up the idea that if you tax the top 1% of this country 100% of their income, 100%,
Mm-hmm.
for a year, they don't get anything back, no income whatsoever, you wouldn't be able to keep Medicare as it stands now going for
Mm.
1 year.
Yeah,
That's not Medicare for all. That's Medicare as it is right
as
now.
it is now. Yeah, I mean these things are not cheap. But the thing is, most of these people who like push for these things to happen, like not the politicians themselves, because they know better.
Hmm.
I don't buy for a second that they're stupid. I mean, I know it's fun to say, but I don't buy for a
It
second that they're
sure
stupid.
is.
Right? They know what they're doing. But like the people, especially the college students who push for this, one, they've either never had a job or they've only had, part-time jobs.
Hmm.
So they never had a lot of money coming in. They don't know what paying taxes is. Um, and then, so like, especially with what you said, what's her name? Keely?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she obviously had no idea what she was talking about, when she was on there. Like, it really wasn't fair. I mean, she just kind of, oh, well, just stumbling through it and not
You know
really
the clip I'm
knowing how to
talking
handle
about,
it.
I'm guessing.
Yes, I know exactly which one you're talking about. Yeah, she was not a good representative for that. But this narrative that these politicians are able to spin appeals to these people who don't know what these things are or how like, the real world actually works. And so it appeals, like I said, it appeals really highly to them. And they get all whipped up into a frenzy, and then we get it all of a sudden, and the whole system comes crumbling down. Yeah.
I want to touch on, I believe this was the first night that this happened. No, this was the Yeah, it was the second night because it was Biden and he halfway
Mhm.
put his hand up and didn't talk about it. All of these scattergun questions that the moderators were asking, which I don't agree with because that's not how a debate works.
Yeah.
But the one that's been making the rounds, of course, is the scattergun question of will the Medicare for All plans, because every candidate is promoting a Medicare for All plan at this point, will the Medicare for All plans that all of these candidates are promoting cover illegal aliens? And everybody
Mm.
said yes.
Yeah. I believe it was actually, wasn't it Yang that kind of hesitated for a second, and then once everyone else's hands were up, he was kind of like, "All right, I guess so."
And that's part of why I don't like these scattergun questions because
Yeah.
Yang might have been a reasonable opposition to that, except for the fact that he was pressured into it essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, he was. Um. So I mean, I assume you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That is a bad, bad thing. I don't. I think they're going to lose a lot of voters. I mean, because it sounds nice.
Yeah.
On paper, you would love to, provide the entire world with Medicare. You want obviously the whole world should get, health insurance or health care, but that's not a reality. That's not realistic. It's not practical. It just can't be done. We should be taking care of our own citizens here
Hmm.
first, and then dealing with others if we can. But
And it kind of knocks the idea of socialism and communism on their faces. I mean, Bernie used to be a pretty stringent border hawk before he joined
mm,
in with the mainstream Democrats and tried to get try to buy the votes that way with doing that. Because if you have a system like socialism, a planned economy, you introduce a variable, any kind of variable at all, which illegal immigration would be a variable in this point because you can't account for it, you're
oh
going to
yeah,
crash that economy pretty goddamn fast.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's why these economies don't work. Centrally planned economies
Hmm.
never work because you can't plan for everything. It's impossible. It's impossible to plan for every single variable. So,
And
uh,
and the countries that
go
do have a strict or that do have the Medicare for all, all have an insanely strict immigration policy.
Yeah,
I mean, you can't enter Canada if you've had a DUI.
yeah, it's true.
I'm not talking immigrate to Canada. You can't go
Right,
in.
right. You can't just go visit. Yeah, no, I mean that's insane. And other than Canada, the rest of the countries are in the EU,
Yeah,
so they kind of had this huge pool of money to collect from, from all the different member states.
yeah.
So I mean, not only that, but we're the ones who are their military for the most part. So
Mm-hmm.
they don't have to spend all that money on military, and they also have a much smaller population.
Mm-hmm.
Especially those Nordic countries that everyone loves to, tout as being the best socialist thing ever. Well, I mean, when you have like 3 million people, it's a lot easier to pay for everyone than it is when you have 320, 300, 30 million people.
Yeah.
It's a huge difference.
And so many. I mean, we're a melting pot, and that's diversity has been
Hmm.
our strength in a lot of things as a melting pot. But when you have a diversity like that, it's hard to make a one size fits all anything because
Yeah,
we are so diverse.
yeah, absolutely.
Let's see, what else do we have on the debates? Let's talk about how the candidates were organized because NBC
Mm,
swears up and down that it was 100% entirely random, and I don't buy that for a second. Yeah,
no.
exactly. For those of you
No.
listening on the audio, that was a very, very unpleasant gesture, which we all think about NBC.
Yes, yeah. Oh man, yeah. Obviously, in the first night they had Elizabeth Warren front and center, and
Against the
then
kids' table. And even when that was
yeah,
announced, it was always called the kids' table.
yeah, yeah. So she was kind of like the mother or the aunt that sits at the kids' table with the kids, make sure they're all behaving,
Hmm.
and then so she could have done a lot better than she did, I suppose. But I don't think she did that well. I mean, I think she got an extra 2 minutes on top of who was the other one that got like 8 minutes and 43 seconds, something like that. I forget who it was.
I didn't even look at stats for the first night. I'm not going to lie about that. But yeah,
Yeah, no, I saw someone did the calculations of how much each person got,
hmm
and I think she got like 11 minutes and something, a few seconds, and then the next one down was like 8 minutes and 40 something seconds. But and then who was front and center? I think Kamala Harris was front and center the second night, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, because she beat up on Joe Biden for doing that.
that's right. Yeah,
Well, that kind of feeds into the thought that I have that they're trying to put Elizabeth Warren up to the top because they put her into a place where she could have very easily won against. I mean, she's got the name recognition against a large amount of political nobodies that very few people outside of us ever had heard about
yeah.
before. Um, sh-
Well, De Blasio was kind of popular for being very anti-Trump. Other than that, though,
yeah, but nobody wants De Blasio to run. De
no.
Blasio's kids don't want De Blasio to run.
Yeah, that's fair.
So that's it was I think that it was handed to Warren that she was supposed to win the first night.
Yeah,
And now everybody else who's going to be sitting and fighting amongst themselves, which they did much of on the second night, were set out there to tear each other down, to tear each other apart, and part the waters, as it may be, for Elizabeth Warren to rise and ascend to the nomination.
yeah, I can see that.
Let the vicious
Um,
people attack each other and let the princess win.
right. Um, I don't know though. I think we're gonna see a dark horse in Kamala Harris and Tulsi Gabbard. I think Andrew Yang, unless Andrew Yang does something big in the next debates, because I can guarantee he's gonna make it. I mean, I guess I can't guarantee it, but
Hmm.
I would bet money on him making it to the next debates. So unless he does something there that's much bigger than what he pulled off in the first one, he's not gonna make it past the second one. Um, So I would say, Kamala Harris or Tulsi Gabbard. They have the right kind of intersectionality that Elizabeth Warren just can't quite pull off, even though she tried. um, so I really think it's going to be between the two of them for the nomination.
All right.
But I do see them wanting to put Warren up because she is pretty establishment
Well, and I've been
toeing the
hearing that
line.
too for quite a while. I mean, back in February, I was listening to Pod Save America because Cortez was on talking about postal banking, and I was doing a
Mm,
video on it at the time. Back in February, I'm listening to these guys talk, and they're already talking about why Warren should be the number one, and the rest of the establishment, or the rest of the voters rather, can't stand her.
yeah,
So the establishment wants her, and the voting public doesn't.
right. That's true. So I guess yeah, we'll have to see unless there's some there's going to be overwhelming support for one of those two, Kamala Harris or Tulsi Gabbard.
Hmm.
Um, that they if there's enough support though, they just can't ignore it. I mean, I guess they ignored Bernie, but ooh, what do you think about his chances? Let me turn this around on you now. Ask you a question.
I
What do you think
think he
about
just got.
Bernie's chances?
I think he just got torpedoed out of it, and
Really?
I think they were trying to. I think that was planned, to be honest. I
Hmm.
don't think Bernie is running a serious candidacy.
Really?
I think Bernie is running a spoiler candidacy to try and take his base back away from whoever would have voted for the Democrat by saying
Mm,
he got cheated again. I think he's taking revenge on the Hillary thing.
that's interesting. Hmm. I haven't gotten that from because he's pretty much just gone up there and said the same thing he said, 3 years ago.
Yeah,
So, hmm, that's interesting though. Hmm,
they
yeah,
screwed
it's a
him,
nice
and he
little.
wants them to get screwed back over that. He's not going to live through the second term of Trump. What's he care?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, no, I like that. I'm gonna have to kind of look into that, see if I can see it from that perspective.
I want you to float that by Robert tonight.
Yeah, I might do that. I might do that.
Well, whenever we talk 2020 on this show, I always ask the guests three questions. You've answered one already, but I'm going to ask it again just to reiterate and just to keep for consistency. So,
Sure.
statistically, now that we have the debates going through and we've actually seen some of the platforms off of this, statistically, who do you think gets to the end as the nominee?
Um, who do I want or who do I think is going to?
Statistically.
I think it's either going to be Biden or Warren because they're establishment,
Hmm.
but I'm not going to count out someone like Kamala Harris or Tulsi Gabbard. There's a lot of support for Tulsi Gabbard. So you know what? I'm actually my answer is going to be Tulsi Gabbard. Yeah, I think she's got the best chance. Um, Obviously she's got obstacles in the way of the establishment trying to keep her from being the one, but there's so much support for her from the center left that she's probably going to make it.
Okay. Now, I think you might have answered this here just again, but now, say that something happens and that Trump can't be the president for whatever reason in 2020. He can't get elected at all.
Mm.
Who does John want to see as the Democrat president out of the field of 25 people that we have running right now?
Um, I've answered this before, so I'm going to be consistent.
Hmm.
I would want Andrew Yang because if the entire thing is going to come crumbling down, I might as well get paid for it. I mean that's that's been my answer for a couple of weeks now, so I'll keep it there.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right. And the last question, and this is probably the one that's been most consistent on this channel, but I think is going to change after the debates. Pure and simple entertainment value, no statistics, no I could haves in there at all. Who do you want to see run against Trump for purely the entertainment value?
Marianne Williamson.
I
That
thought
would
for
be
sure that
amazing.
was.
Yeah.
I think we're going to
Oh
start getting
yeah.
a lot of that in this channel.
Yeah. Either her or De Blasio, because they're gonna argue back and forth. They're gonna be vicious. But mostly Marianne Williamson, just because she's just so kooky and like she's got like some of that like fun mom energy. She's just like she's. She's bubbly. And, I don't know. She's got a personality for it, and so he's gonna come at her with all of these attacks that he normally does, and then she's gonna be like, "Well, I'm just gonna love you, I just love." Like, oh, it's gonna be great. Yeah, that's what I'm going with for sure.
Well, we have just spent 40 minutes in 2020 watch, so do you want to go on to another topic now?
Yeah, we can do that.
So, the next topic that I have. Oh, my camera just froze up.
Oh, you're good on my side.
Am I?
Yeah.
Well, I'm using a different camera on your side, that's why.
Ah,
That's
gotcha.
interesting. Let's talk
Oh
about
wow.
Muller.
All right, we can do that.
So, Robert Mueller is going to be called back into Congress to testify. Now, Mueller came out and said that he is not going to be saying anything different than what he said in the Mueller report if he did come forward to testify, and that was supposed to be his reason for not coming forward. But Congress has now convened and said that they are going to call him forward to testify. What do you think is going, or what do you think they want to come out of this? First off,
I think they want to get him for perjury.
what do you think they have him perjured on?
Oh no, nothing yet. They're just gonna grill him with questions under oath until he slips up on some fact or another, and then get him on that later on. I think that's what's gonna happen because there's no other reason for them to do it, and they're mad that he didn't come up with anything. So that's what it seems like to me. Maybe I'm wrong, but
Hmm.
just in a they just want Trump to go down, and the guy who was supposed to bring him down didn't do that.
What do you think the end of that would be then if they got him for perjury? I mean, obviously he'd go to prison for it, and that'd be a nickel for him. But I mean, where
Yeah.
does that stand in the report and the impeachment case then? Because the only thing now that you bring that up I can think of would be to try and discredit this and open up a new
Yeah,
investigation going into
exactly.
an election year, which makes that part in itself. If it wasn't going, excuse me, into an election year, it would make sense to me. But going into an election year seems like I don't know.
Well, then they can hammer that home during the entire year. They can be like, "Oh, our president's under investigation. He's under investigation. How can you vote for someone who's under investigation?" And they're just going to repeat that over and over again. That's one. Obviously, I don't know, but that's what it seems like the move is for me.
Well, there's some merit to that I could see because I mean, Hillary was under investigation
Hmm.
throughout her presidency, and that was something that a lot of people brought up for that. But I don't know if they've got the wherewithal to do that at this point.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just something I had thought of. Obviously, I don't know for sure,
Hmm.
but it makes sense to me that they're just vindictive at this point. They just need some kind of results,
Yeah.
and they're just not getting it.
How many people in Congress do you think have actually read the full report?
Um,
And I'm not talking about the unredacted version because we have a Fourth
right.
Amendment to keep us from getting an unredacted version.
Yeah, for now, yeah, we have it for now. Um, I don't know, probably not very many. Most of them probably had their staff read it and give them the cliff notes. That's what I'm guessing.
So that's I think that might be why they're trying to get him out there to actually get some of the information from this.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it could be.
Do you think it changes anything once he gets up there?
No, I know. I don't think anything's going to come of it other than maybe him being, trapped in perjury. You know, other than that, I can't see anything else coming from it. I mean, they're just going to get the same answers that they got before.
Yeah, because he said that when he did his retirement speech that
Yeah,
he didn't want to go in front of Congress because he was just going to say the exact same thing that's in the report. At which point he might as well just get up on the floor of the House of Representatives and say, "Read the report."
yeah. If he's smart, he'll answer with "read the report" for
Have
every question they ask. Read the report.
Have you read the report?
Not all of it. No.
I have.
Yeah, yeah. How was it?
Dry.
How'd it end? Yeah.
We
Yeah, I mean
we
that's
know
why I
how it
couldn't go
ended.
through it all. Right.
Bill Barr took
But
care of that for us.
yeah, see that I've read the little cliff notes that he came out with.
You can't bring 4 pages down into or 400 pages down into one page.
Yeah,
It's
I
not
know.
enough. It's not enough.
It's not enough. Yeah,
Okay, here's the full report.
it's not unredacted. It needs to be unredacted. Oh my God. Yeah, it's just ridiculous.
Can you
They're not
imagine
even what?
unredacted? How many people would be
Oh
protested
yeah.
over that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that would be ridiculous. I mean, they're not even grasping for straws. What's less than straws for them to grasp? I mean,
Probably
I
the
don't even
same thing
know.
you're grasping right now.
My phone.
No, the hairs on your chin.
Oh, right. I was doing that at that time. Yeah, that's my hairs on my chin are better though.
But they are less than straws.
Yeah, I guess so.
I
But
mean,
yeah, that
yeah,
it's
they've
just
got
they
nothing.
have nothing, nothing.
Jinx, you owe me a Coke.
All right, next time I see you. Oh man,
I
but
don't know.
yeah, yeah, they have nothing, and but they're just continuously leaning on it. That's all that they have. They put all their eggs in that one basket, and now that basket is smashed, and they're mad that they lost their eggs.
I don't know. I'm gonna watch it when if it happens.
Oh yeah,
I'm not 100% sure that it actually happens at this point, but I am absolutely going to watch it if it does.
oh yeah, for sure.
You've got to at this point.
Oh yeah, just to hear him say "read the report" over and over again, and see how pissed off they get that he doesn't, answer the questions that they're asking.
Let's talk about the Chicago bar and the bartender that spit in Eric Trump's face. This past week, we had a it was a brief snippet story. There wasn't much that came out of it, but a bartender in Chicago saw that Eric Trump was going to be her customer and went up and spit in his face. Now, this is an assault charge in Illinois. It's
Oh
not an
yeah.
assault charge everywhere, but it is in Illinois state law. It's an assault charge. But it really speaks to the idea of, I mean, this is going to escalate. We'll talk a little bit more about the milkshakes later, but I mean, it starts with an empty milkshake or a piece of trash or somebody
Mhm.
spitting in your face, and where does it go? So, what did you see on this one?
I actually hadn't heard about it until you told me about it. So yeah, I haven't seen much on it. Um, Not at all, actually.
And Rush was talking about it this morning, which was
Oh yeah.
interesting because this was almost a week ago when it popped up. But sure
Hmm.
enough, it was sitting there in his show notes, and he was drawing a lot of comparisons to the Red Hen incident that happened when Sarah Sanders went into a restaurant and was told to leave,
Yeah.
which thanks
Yeah.
Sarah Sanders for her service.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, I think that that's assault, obviously. And so does the state of Illinois. Um, yeah, I mean, that's just ridiculous. I mean, he has nothing to do with what, his dad does. And you know, you shouldn't, oh my God, you shouldn't just attack someone just because you don't like someone's politics, or you don't like what a member of their family did. It doesn't make any sense.
Let's talk about the fact that this came up on almost a whim at this point. Because, I mean, it's not like the bartender was sitting down with a phone and saying, "What does Eric Trump look like?" and whatnot. I want to talk about some of the obsession that some of these people that have with
Mm,
with the political figures, especially the Trump family. Other than Donald, Melania, and Ivanka, I could not tell you what any Trump looks like at
yeah,
all. I couldn't
yeah.
pick them out of a lineup from any other Irish guy from New York.
Yeah, that's true. I can't think of what they look like. No, I'm just not worried about it. It's not
But
relevant.
but the enemies of Trump, however, are very worried about that, and they're focused so much on who these people are and what they do and what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're kept in just this constant state of like hyper arousal by the media, but just it's ridiculous. They're just constantly worked up about the smallest things that happen, with Trump, and they're fed this every day, all day, through CNN especially, but all these other media places as well, and Twitter. Really, Twitter is probably the biggest culprit in that. And so as soon as like they're face to face with the person that they spent literally all of their time hating for the past 3 years, 4 years probably, uh, yeah, I guess it just does something to them. I don't know.
Yeah, the hatred just blows my mind on that too, because I mean, this guy was a celebrity. I do you listen to Steven's podcast at all, or
Which Steven? Ignoramus?
yeah?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, that's right,
I'm there
because
all the time.
you were on the Daily Show this morning.
Yeah,
The woman
I'm
that
his mod.
the woman that was
Yeah.
on his podcast the other day, Vanessa, who I'm going to
Mm,
I think reach out and invite onto this show coming up forward. She used to be an entertainment journalist, and I mean, she
mm.
brought up the very idea. She was in support of Trump. She thought he was a good guy when he was doing The Apprentice, but as soon as the media started to change the narrative about the guy and make him into a rapist and a racist and all this, she fell into that, and I think a lot of people in the country have.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They'll believe whatever bad thing comes out about him. Doesn't matter what it is or how far fetched it is. There are people who will believe it because they want to. They want to believe that he's just like Satan incarnate.
Yeah. And I remember a time where people's kids were off limits. I mean, I've called
Mm.
people out for going after Obama's kids, and I couldn't stand anything that man did. But
Yeah, they had nothing to do with it. They're just kids. I mean,
yeah,
yeah.
they're along for the ride.
Right.
I was a little bit appalled by how much media attention Chelsea got when she was in the White House.
Mm.
She was 13,
Yeah.
and she even
Yeah.
got her face on Beavis and Butthead Do America.
That's right. She did, didn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that was going too far, but I mean that was still spun in a positive light by the media.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Kids
Yeah. No. Oh, go ahead.
kids should be off limits.
Yeah. I mean, they have nothing to do with what their parents do. It makes no sense.
The only politician's child who should have been in play for being criticized for being a politician's child, well, the only two children that should have been in play for being politicians' children were Jeb and W,
Well, yeah, because they were
because they're
politicians as well.
politicians.
Right. That's fair. Yeah.
And Chelsea, of course, if she jumps into all of this too, there's rumblings about the fact that she's going to do this.
Well, yeah. So I mean, once she dies, fine. Have at it. But
Ivanka, Ivanka, I'll give um, a little bit of a pass to the media for getting on and criticizing her to an
mm,
extent because she did put herself into the public eye as well.
yeah, that's true.
She did that voluntarily. I mean, she was asked by her father, but he didn't hold her down and force her. She did that voluntarily, knowing what it was going to entail to be a part of the cabinet of the president. So
Right.
she went, she did it voluntarily. And did you see the stupid shit that AOC was posting about that?
No, I didn't. Was that recent?
Yeah, it was within the last couple days. Being somebody's daughter
Okay.
doesn't make you qualified to be a diplomat.
I mean, that's true, I suppose. But that's not the only reason why she was put into place,
No, I mean,
right?
she's a successful business leader. She has been around the world. She's done multinational business dealings.
Yeah.
She wouldn't have been my first choice for the job, but I wouldn't have disqualified her for it.
Right. Yeah, it's not like he just put her in place just because, it's his daughter. Uh,
Well, that's what Samantha Bee will have you believe is that he put her in that place just because it's his daughter, but
right. It fits the narrative, so just go with it, I guess.
let's talk about these Supreme Court decisions that came down this past week, because there were two big ones that came out of the Supreme Court, and they seem to be targeted against Republicans, which, of course,
Hmm.
if we listen to the left's narrative, that was never supposed to happen again because the evil Donald Trump was putting justices in place and judge shopping. The Supreme Court slapped down two decisions, one on gerrymandering, which is only evil when there's a Republican in office, and the
Naturally.
census question. So you said I haven't talked anything or done any research on the gerrymandering question, but you said you and Robert have. So why don't you lead
Uh,
with that?
I wouldn't say that we've done research, but we've definitely argued about it. um, so I mean, basically, yeah, it's just like the redrawing of districts based on voting habits.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm not sure how I feel about it, to be honest. Because obviously, it can be abused pretty heavily to sway, the votes in one way or the other.
Hmm.
But I mean, since both sides do it, it's kind of if it's broken, at least it's broken evenly, you know. Um, so yeah, I'm not really sure how I feel about it, to be honest. I don't have a very strong opinion on it.
Well, I mean, I look at this a little bit more, and I do think that this some of this does fit the census and the census question. And I think a part of the reason that the left was so adamant to try and get the president out of all of this while we were looking at us while we were looking at 2020 essentially, because Trump is going to be overseeing the Census Bureau this time, and
Mm,
that the census is in place to try and make sure that the districts are represented properly, which means
right.
that the census would have something to do with the gerrymandering.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So that may be a part of the reason that they've been so hell bent to try and get him out of office. But the other thing that the Supreme Court handed down is right now they are blocking the president putting a question of citizenship onto the census, which I've done a video on because I think it's very important to have that question on there. We need to count these people.
Yeah,
Now, the argument from the left was the fact that if the census question was on the, or if the citizenship question was on the census, then people or the illegal immigrants would neglect to fill out the census, which they need to fill that out because I don't know about you, but I want to make sure that my sewer system can handle all of the people that are going to be using it at least for the next
yeah,
10 years until
fair
we figure
enough.
out how many more people are going to be in that area and using that same system.
Yeah,
And it's not just that, it's roads, it's public utilities, it's power, it's housing. There's so much that goes from the census that doesn't include whether or not you're a citizen, but your district drawing is based on how many citizens live in an area. So we need to know how many people are in an area, but we also need to know how to district based on who's there and who is eligible to vote and be represented.
right. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Like I said, I don't really have a strong opinion on it. So, no, I mean, that sounds very reasonable.
I have a strong
Um,
opinion on it. I don't want my
I can
sewer
tell.
system to blow up.
Yeah, I can tell. I wouldn't want that either, to be fair. So, yeah, I'm with you.
I'll get back to this. Okay, folks, we're back with the webcam issue that we had going on here. I had to adjust some things for the next scene that we had going on here, but we're going to take some time. We're going to talk about this tweet storm that went on over out of New York. Now,
Mm,
I mentioned at the beginning of this, or when we were teasing the topics rather, that the main question that came out of all of this was the fact that everybody was asking who this guy was because nobody had any idea. So, Nathan McMurray was a failed Democrat candidate for Congress in New York's 27th district. He somehow still has a blue check mark on Twitter, which I'm not sure why, so he's still verified. And he started out with a very strong anti-gun tweet storm. Excuse me, a tweet storm talking about how he was going to be coming for all the assault weapons out there. And of course, just like most other politicians out there, he has no idea what an assault weapon even is. So let's take some time and look at some of these tweets. Now, obviously, first off, you know that I retweeted out and mentioned the fact that the lion tweet. So let's get that one
right.
loaded up here. So what McMurray says is that, yep, I'm coming for your AR-15. You heard me. No apologies. The same reason you don't need a lion to protect your home is why you don't need a rifle that shoots at 3 times the speed of sound and splits concrete like ice. It's an unreasonable risk. End the mass shooter era in America. Now, I don't know if that's just a bonus unlockable AR-15.
Right. I think you have to get the season pass for that. Some
Do I
DLC.
have to pre-order something to get that? Because I kind of want that AR-15.
Yeah, it sounds pretty awesome.
Now,
It's kind
three
of what I
times the
want.
speed of
Yeah.
sound is a pretty standard. It's a pretty standard load for a rifle cartridge.
Yeah.
Usually, it's a little bit less if you're chambered in 308, but I mean that's pretty standard is to go 3 times the speed of sound.
Yeah. So I guess we have to get rid of all of those. We should do all what is it, subsonic rounds only.
Which at that point you're shooting buckshot out your back door
Right.
and hoping that the squirrel is still in enough pieces to eat.
Right.
But he went on from this, of course. The next quote that I have is repeat after me, and that's in all caps. We aren't afraid of you. We aren't afraid of the NRA, and we won't accept a country that's made unsafe by your insecurity. Of course, talking about the fact that gun owners must be insecure if they are wanting to cling to guns. Once
It
again,
was
back in all caps, end the mass shooting era in America fearlessly. If I say it and you say it, it will be easier for whoever comes next until we win.
my God. Was he using like a little clap emoji? It's like in between each word.
I'm pretty sure he would have run out of characters by that point if he had.
That's true. Yeah, that's fair.
Let's see. There was another one I wanted to do before this one. And then, of course, he has to define the AR 15. So, AR 15 is not an assault rifle, quoting his detractors, of course. Uh,
Mm.
how else would you describe a gun designed in tandem with the M16 that can carry 100 rounds, that can shoot 60 rounds a minute unmodified, which you can change in
What?
5 seconds, that fires with the velocity 3 times the speed of sound? A toy?
Can it carry 100 rounds? I don't
No.
think so.
No.
I didn't think so. Even with like a drum, it's usually like 75.
Yeah, I've never seen a magazine that big for an AR. And I
No.
actually, when I did this, I had to fact check that one. I had to figure out where he was getting that kind of information from. Now, of course,
Mm.
if you sit down and you Google the AR-15, the first thing that you see is a bunch of pages that are talking about everything that mothers against whatever they want to be against have to say about the AR-15. But I did find this Wikipedia article, and that's talking about the Armalite AR-18,
Mm.
which is a gas-powered select fire rifle that the Armalite company was designing for the U.S. government for use to replace their 7.72 chambered weapon out on the field. And yes, that was designed in tandem with the M16. That was their offering, and the government chose to go with the M16 instead.
Right. So, do you think that he's just stupid, or do you think he's full of shit?
I Once we get off camera here, I will actually link you to his Twitter feed. It is if Trump derangement system or Trump derangement syndrome rather was a person, it would be Nate
It would be him.
McMurray.
That's awesome.
You have to read this guy's Twitter feed. It is
Oh
amazing.
yeah, I'm gonna follow him as soon as you link it to me for sure. It's
Well,
gonna
yeah,
be
I mean
fun.
the guests right now are or the audience rather is looking at this and they see that I'm not following him yet, but I will be after this as well.
Oh yeah.
So he had one more gem here as he was coming out of this, and he said guns with a strong arm emoji, and it says thank you for the jargon. Thank you for demonstrating your detailed understanding of the minute differences between make and model, because there's every one of these tweets got ratioed hard by people that
Oh
actually
yeah.
knew what a gun was all about. And then he finished off, and this is, of course, from your neck of the woods. But the cop with a handgun running from the kid with an AR-15 at Parkland taught me enough to know AR-15's got to go. So now that we've been through everything that this wonderful gentleman has to say, what do you have to say to this?
Um, I have to say that he's just another activist trying to, push his narrative. Um, I can't tell if he's stupid or, just full of it or both, perhaps. Yeah, I do think that, though, to be fair, that people do get caught up on the minutia of, the arguments saying, "Oh, it's not an assault weapon." They know that.
Hmm.
They're just saying the buzzwords that need to be said. So I think what needs to happen is to actually present the right arguments instead of just saying, "Oh, you got this word wrong, or you got that word wrong." And is to actually make the argument for the Second Amendment, make the argument for not taking away, law-abiding citizens' guns because some people don't obey the law. Like murdering people, for
Yeah,
instance. you know, so that's really where I come down on this side of things. You know, I mean, it's important to know the terms, right? Know actually what you're talking about, but they don't care about that.
right.
They're not interested.
Yeah,
So,
because it's not going to stop at the assault weapon. It's going to keep going on, and it's going to be handguns next, and it'll be your
oh
muzzle
yeah,
loader after that, and
not mine. You're not coming for my flintlock. No, you are not.
they'll come and gather up all those fancy sabers that are sitting behind you.
Yeah, they'll have to take them to come and take them first, and they're not going to have guns to take them with, right? Because we're getting rid of all the guns.
No, no, no. They get to keep the guns.
Right. There you go. The state gets all the power.
I thought we needed a laugh after all of the serious talk about the debate, so we had
Right.
to have that one in there.
Oh man.
All right, and we've got two more topics here. They might be some quick hitters here, but yeah, we're going to end on a down note too. So enjoy the laugh while we're there.
Yeah.
So G20 was this past week, and Donald Trump was watching the debates from another country during the G20 summit. He was in Japan, of course. Now, the first story that I have from G20 comes from when Trump was sitting and talking next to Putin on a panel, because a reporter stood up during this and told Trump that the reporter demanded that Trump tell Russia not to interfere in the election. And the Donald, being the great Donald that he is, turned over to Vladimir Putin and said, "Don't interfere in the election."
Yeah. Yeah,
And
that was
that just made
amazing.
everybody go nuts.
Oh yeah. Oh, he's such a class act. It's great.
And people thought that it was serious. Like, people were looking at this saying, "Oh, well, he's got that grin on him, like he got away with something." And
Right.
no, I
But
think that
no.
was just to try and push the media.
Yeah, he was just messing with you. That's it. I mean, yeah. It shouldn't be a story,
Yeah.
really. There's no news there. It's
Well,
just he had like a funny little moment, little joke, and that was it.
well, the news, of course, would have been as well that, oh, well, he's talking to Putin to begin with, which we saw that before too. But let's not forget the hot mic moment in which Obama was talking to not Putin, but a subordinate of Putin, and said,
Mm.
"Oh, well, I'll have more leverage after the election goes through."
Ooh, yeah. Forgot about that.
So, I mean, this is nothing new, and you've got to be able to talk to the other countries out there. You've actually got to be able to discuss some of this stuff. If you're
Yeah.
going to have peace around the world, you've got to be able to talk to people. But the mainstream media, I don't think they want peace. I don't think the Democrats want peace unless there's a Democrat in office. And even then,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, certainly not, because I mean, first of all, what's the media going to report on if there's peace, right? I
yeah,
mean, they have nothing to report on if everything's good. And same with the Democrats; they can't gain power if everything is good, because then they have no issues to push. They have no,
there's no
uh,
underclass.
yeah, exactly. There's no one being oppressed, so they're useless.
Well, they're useless anyway, but
Well, yeah, but I'm saying the eyes of their own, party. Like there's no need for them, if
mm.
no one's oppressed.
Which
That's why they have to
there's always going
continuously
to be an
make up.
underclass. There's always going to be people that are
Yeah,
oppressed because, I mean, like it or not, we're people. We get out what we put in. We work
yeah,
and we take back what we worked for.
yep, that's true. So,
Everyone, of course, thought that that was going to be the most historical thing that came out of the G20, but history was made this past week.
hmm
Just a few hours ago. Well, not a few hours ago, but at the time we're recording this, this was just like 24
this
hours ago.
morning.
Not even. Well, yeah, it was this
Okay, yeah,
morning. Yeah,
yeah, it was this morning or yesterday, something like that, or like late last night.
yeah. Donald Trump
Yeah,
became the first sitting U.S. president to enter North Korea ever.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
Photo ops show that Donald Trump was crossing over into the DMZ. He walked up in there. He shook Kim's hands, and this was a dangerous thing to begin with. I
oh
would
yeah.
love to see how many snipers were lined up on both sides pointing at everybody, but
Oh yeah,
I mean, you could have cut the tension with a knife of watching this, but this is, of course, something else that the mainstreams are trying to smear as something bad.
of course, yeah. Because Orange Man must be bad. That
Yeah.
is the number one rule on in every media outlets break room. Number one rule: Orange Man must be bad.
You think Jim Acosta has that poster sitting up over his bed?
I think he does. Yeah, yeah. I think it's taped to his mirror, so he's getting his makeup done in the morning.
I thought his
It's
own
just sitting
picture
up
was
there.
taped to his mirror.
Well, that's right next to it. Yeah. Orange Man must be bad.
So, what do you think this means for the future of U.S. and North Korea relations? Because, I mean, on a serious note of this is historic. This is something that Clinton talked about. This is something that W talked about. This is something that
hmm
Obama talked about. None of them were able to accomplish it. And yet, at the beginning of the presidency, with the tweets, we were supposed to be going to nuclear war
Yep.
with North Korea because we were talking about the size of buttons. And here we've got these two men sit back and shake their hands. And the only thing the
Yeah.
media can say is, oh, well, he surrounds himself with evil dictators.
Yeah, I mean the media now isn't going to celebrate it, but I think in the next 10, 12 years it'll be celebrated as a huge moment. Um yeah, because I think it's going to start at least opening conversation more, like more casual conversation than we've previously had, where everyone had to, really mind their P's and Q's. Um so I think that it's eventually going to lead to at least opening up of North Korea, like not reunification with South Korea, not for a while, probably not until after Kim Jong Un dies. Is my guess, because he's going to want to hold on to that power
Oh,
as
yeah.
much as possible. So but I think that it'll open up kind of trade and maybe even travel between the two countries, and because I mean North Korea really needs that.
Hmm.
Their people are just screwed. So I mean, it's obviously with that though comes with weakening of Kim Jong Un's power. Because people get to see what reality is instead of just what they're allowed to see. So I think we're going to see steps towards that, and with that, I think denuclearization, obviously, you know, gradually and not all at once, but gradual steps towards these things. And I think that honestly, the denuclearization will come after, like the loosening of trade embargoes and travel things like that. Things that'll start getting North Korea more money.
Well, one of the things I want to bring up on this, and this is something that Poole brought up this morning, I was listening to him. I think Sticks talked a little bit about it this morning too, and that's
hmm
the fact that I mean, we are a minor player in this at this point. We have our
Yeah.
army has bases in South Korea, but for the most part, the U.S. is out of the Korean War, which is still going on.
hmm
Does this move us closer to actually having an armistice in North Korea and the end of the official Korean War?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be probably one of the first steps that we see in what I was talking about before with, bringing North Korea into the rest of the world.
Hmm.
So I mean, obviously that would be a big, symbolic thing because I mean, it's the war isn't technically over, but it's kind of been over for a while,
Hmm.
So I think ending it officially obviously would, be a big step. But more importantly, I think it would be more, allowing travel and trade with North Korea to get them some more money so their people aren't, hurting as much. And then obviously you can give it to Kim Jong Un and he'll, disperse some of it, keep most of it for himself, obviously. But and he'll be able to tell his people like, look, I'm, giving you all of this. Look how great I am.
Hmm.
Continue to worship me, and then it'll just kind of loosen from there.
Wait. Are you talking about Kim Jong Un or Hillary Clinton?
Yeah, they're interchangeable, really.
That raises an interesting question, though, too. I mean, let's go back to 2016. Does this
Mhm.
happen under a Hillary Clinton or a Bernie Sanders regime?
Absolutely not. No, we would be in the same spot we were in before. There would be almost no talks with them. I don't think we would be at war with them, or in military conflict with them.
Hmm.
But I don't think that there would be these kind of talks. Neither of them certainly would have gone over the demarcation line. There's no way they would have gotten that far.
Well, I've got one more topic here to round this out, and then I will probably be screaming at my laptop and trying to figure out why my good webcam doesn't work. But
Right.
this is kind of a dark topic, but this is something that does affect, I think, you and I to an extent, and
Hmm.
another person in our media group as well. But we talked a lot about the media this show. We've talked a lot about the media on this channel. You've talked a lot about it on your channel.
Hmm.
Journalists, actual journalists on the ground, are hard to come by. I mean, I don't have the equipment to go out and do journalism. I would love to, but I don't have the equipment or the startup costs to do that. There are brave people out there that do that, though, on both sides,
Hmm.
and they do it independently. At a Portland prayer rally this past week that was supposed to be put on by the Proud Boys, Antifa came in great numbers and tried to break that up. Now, there were people that were being beaten left and right. I saw an elderly man being let out with blood
Hmm.
all over his face. But the most attention that came out of this came from the fact that journalist Andy No was milkshaked, except they found that there was a quick drying cement in the milkshake. We'll talk a little bit about what that would have meant in a second. But he was also brutally beaten.
Mm.
Most of the cameras, or most of the people that are on the left, say that he was not beaten, he was not touched. But he's currently hospitalized rather right now for a brain hemorrhage. So let's talk a little bit about what happened first off,
Hmm.
because I'm sure you've been paying as much of attention to it as I have.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I was actually like I've mentioned this during Stephen Ignoramus's show earlier that it takes quite a bit to inspire my passions, but something like this really, really gets under my skin. That's really pisses me off.
Hmm.
I mean, he was just reporting on it. That was it. He wasn't provoking anyone, wasn't doing anything to anyone, and they called him out by name before he even got there. That they were going to look for him. I mean, these are people who they have no empathy that they claim. They claim to have a monopoly on empathy, but they
Hmm.
have none. They claim to fight for minorities, unless of course those minorities go against what they think.
Hmm.
They have this like they put people on in a monolith. Right? Am I using that word right? I think so.
Hmm.
Where if you're this, if you're X, you're supposed to think a certain way. If you're Y, you're supposed to think this way. And if someone steps outside of that, they're an enemy. So I mean, they're gonna call people racist But then it's a bunch of white people beating up on a gay Vietnamese man. I mean, and he's not a provocateur. Like people were saying, he's getting smeared in the media as a
Yeah,
provocateur. Like
that's I
he's
wanted to
far
bring that up
right,
because they
and
keep
he's
saying he was provoking, and I have
right.
not seen that.
No, just existing near them is not provoking anyone. No, I don't care if they're pointing a camera in your face. There's so many cameras there. Why did he get singled out? Because he's a minority that doesn't think correctly. But they're not supposed to be the racists. They're not supposed to be the fascists. It's absolutely ridiculous. And eventually, and I don't want this to happen, but it's things like this keep happening. People are going to start retaliating, and it's going to end up very, very poorly for them. It's going to end up very poorly. And again, I don't want it to happen, but I can absolutely see it happening very shortly.
Well, I bring this up. I talked about this earlier. First off, when I gave my anecdote in the beginning of the show, I
Mm-hmm.
brought this up because this is happening in a very left-leaning area, Portland, Oregon, where
Mm-hmm.
if you say that people are going to retaliate, who's going to be carrying a gun in Portland?
The people who are not from Portland,
Yeah, I mean,
people who are in the suburbs and outskirts of Portland.
I think considering buying a gun is a 15-year felony in Oregon, is it not?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
Just considering buying one. I'm not talking actually owning one.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it might as well be. Yeah, yeah. It's
But
ridiculous.
I do want to
But
take a
I mean,
second and talk about the milkshakes and the escalation. Now,
hmm,
the first thing, of course, is we'll go back to what was going on in England not that long ago with the milkshakes and Burger King
hmm,
coming out and saying, "Hey, we're selling milkshakes," because
yeah.
that was supposed to be the end of it, was the fact that it was just milkshakes over in Tommy Robinson land, and it was just snowflakes that were saying, "Oh, well, it's just a milkshake. You shouldn't be so offended by that." And most of the people on the right were talking about the escalation that came out of this.
Hmm.
Now, these milkshakes were filled with a quick drying cement compound,
Yep.
which people were joking about doing that over in England while this was going on. However, a lot of people on Twitter were talking about the fact that sugar cancels out the ability of these milkshakes to dry with a quick drying
Hmm.
cement. But Poole brought up the excellent point of the fact that the compound that they were using is extremely caustic, it's extremely
Yeah.
alkaline, and it causes chemical
Yeah.
burns. This was a definite escalation. This was definitely meant to harm and go even further than just trying to embarrass somebody by a milkshake.
For sure.
Somebody is going to die at some point
Yeah.
if this keeps escalating the way it is.
And they're gonna justify it by bringing up Heather Heyer like they always do.
It's it's either going to be it's going to be an accident from somebody going too far in an incident like this, or I do
Hmm.
have a genuine fear that somebody's going to get assassinated if this keeps going the way that it is.
Yeah.
Like straight out cold blooded murder of not even just the president, but a political figure, an alt media figure, somebody in the cabinet, a governor who goes the wrong way. Somebody's going to get killed
Hmm.
over this.
And as soon as that happens, that's what I was talking about before. That would absolutely start it. That would absolutely start. I guess our second civil war. As soon as that happens, people will come out in droves for that, and I don't. Again, I don't want it to happen. That would be absolutely terrible for us. But I mean, what can you do if these people won't be reasoned with? I mean,
I got
I don't know.
laughed at a few years ago during the Romney debates, where Romney Obama debates rather, where I saw the things that were going on, and I said that this is going to lead to a civil war. That was back in 2012. People were
Mm,
laughing and saying that'll never happen. Well, it'll never happen. We'll de-escalate it before then. Now I'm sitting here actually afraid that this is going to happen.
I would have said the same thing back in 2012. I would have said exactly the same thing. That I would have been like, "There's no way that's going to happen." I said that 3 years ago. There's no way it's going to happen. It'll be fine. It's going to de-escalate. Everyone will settle down. No, it's just gotten worse.
I don't know what Europe was like in the 19 teens, but I gotta say, I can't imagine we're in less of a powder keg than than they were when
Yeah,
Franz Ferdinand was killed.
yeah, and what makes it worse though is that we have the internet. We can find out information instantly,
Hmm.
and I mean you can push whatever narrative you want because people are only looking at the things that they want to see. So both sides are going to get slightly different information or completely different information, and yeah, that can be a huge powder keg. And all it takes is one spark.
And we talked about the fact that an assassination is going to be the one that
Hmm.
set it off because, I mean, that's what
Easily,
happened in Europe.
yeah, 100%.
And how many people died over that? And how many of our people died and we weren't even involved in that?
Yeah, and this time it will be us. I don't know. Do you think it would start at the same time in Europe as it does here? Like
No.
if something happened here, you
No,
think I don't know.
I think if it happens in Europe before here, I think that actually might de-escalate us at some point because
Hmm.
we are going to have to jump in and bail our allies out because we are the military over there.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, the UK has a pretty decent military. Not obviously not compared to us, but compared to most of the rest of the world, they're doing pretty well for their military. But yeah, no, I see your point.
My big question now that you bring that up there is if it breaks out in Europe before us, do we
Mm.
faction in this country as to which side we're on?
Are we talking about like balkanizing, or like what do
Yeah,
you?
yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Now that that would be an appropriate word for that.
I mean, maybe. Uh, I don't want to see that happen. We've gone so long with people being able to live peacefully together despite, differences. But I don't know. I mean, I would be screwed here in Florida. We have, very we're very diverse here.
Hmm.
Um, but I mean, most people here, I don't think care. Most people are apolitical, and I don't think they would really. Hmm, yeah, I don't know. I can tell you I wouldn't want to. I don't think it's a good idea to balkanize, but if that's if that's what keeps us from a civil war, but again, I don't think it would. I don't think it ultimately would. I think it might delay it for a couple decades, but I don't think it would be overall a good thing.
Well, before I
I don't
close,
know. It's tough. It's tough. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
before I close out the show, I do want to point out the same thing that Christensen has pointed out, the same thing that Poole has pointed out, and that's the fact that there are crowdfunding sites out there to try and make sure that Andy's medical bills are taken care of. I will link one of them in the description below this, and on the audio platform, it'll be in the show notes as well. So if you've got a couple bucks, throw it Andy's way. I've already done so, and
I have as well.
the guy really could use our support. So,
Absolutely.
but now that we've ended on this very dark note, I think it's time to turn around and bring this out on a light note. So you've been on the show before, you know
Yeah.
what's coming next here. So tell us about a hobby that you have that has nothing to do then with work or politics. It could be an album that you're listening to, a book that you picked up,
Yeah.
or it's just something that helps you unwind from the fact that this is all so dark and scary.
Yeah. So last time I came on, I mentioned about, reading about history and, learning about history. Part of that is that I practice HEMA, which is historical European martial arts.
Okay.
As you see, got some of the swords back there. I don't use those. They're sharp and real. But we use, get some helmets and, big gambeson, they're called. They're just big, like thick wool jackets.
Okay.
Um, and just kind of have at each other. Obviously, learning drills and things like that as well. So I've been doing that for a little while, and that's a lot of fun. It's a full body workout. It's really good for staying in shape because man, like especially your back and your arms, just it's incredible. And it's a lot of fun. You get to whack the crap out of people with no consequences, other than like a bruise or two. Other than that, it's a lot of fun. And I would recommend that, if that's something you're interested in, give it a shot for sure.
And everybody go ahead and take some time and look up your local HEMA chapter then.
Yeah, they're in most places, most major cities. You'll find at least one.
And I want to thank the audience for taking the time to come by and watch this show. If you want to continue the conversation with me on any of this, feel free to follow me on Twitter. That is at edsblog Twitter with a one in place of the I, as I mentioned before. You can email me, that's edsblogtwitter@gmail.com. There are going to be some more links to come. I'm going to be starting to branch out on some of my social media presence, so watch that going forward. If you want to continue the conversation with John, John, tell us where they can find you and some other projects you're working on.
Yeah, you can find us on Twitter at the Gen Gap P. You can find us. We have a Discord server, which I'm not sure if Ed's gonna link it or not.
I
But
will.
okay, cool. Then yeah, you can find it in the description. And then of course, along with Ed and some other people who don't really matter, you can find us on freedomscoop.com, which is a great little site where you can find more of us. Um, I always say that, people who don't really matter. Um, as for any other projects I'm working on,
What?
I don't. What's that?
Well, I wanted to make sure that you plugged your show too, so.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You can obviously the generational gap is our show, and the link I suppose will also be at the in the bottom in the
Yeah.
description.
When can they find you
Um,
live?
find us live Monday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern time, and Friday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. And that's about it.
And as I said in the beginning of the show, if you like this show, thank you for watching on YouTube and BitChute. Make sure you hit that like button as you're going by. And if you want to continue to support Ed's World, hit that subscribe button as you go by. You'll be going that way anyway to see all the links to everywhere you can find John. So make sure you hit that. Once again, we are available on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play podcasts. So make sure you subscribe over there and leave that 5-star rating and a good review on iTunes. And if you don't have a 5-star rating for us, email me at edsblogtwitter@gmail.com and let me know what we can do to try and improve this, because I want to make sure to provide a 5-star show for you. I know this one will be a little bit hard because we had some technical issues, but and as John mentioned, you can find all of my content, all of their content, Stephen Ignoramus's content, and some great articles as well over on freedomscoop.com. Make sure you check all of that out because we don't know what YouTube is going to do, and they might leave us out in the cold.
Yeah.
As we always say on this show, never take the words of bloggers, podcasters, or journalists as gospel. Find all the facts and draw your own conclusions. John, you have last word.
Well, so I agree mostly with what your little ending is there, but you can take my word as gospel. That's fine. I don't mind.
Take care, everyone.
Yep, see you guys.